this morning, the Supreme Court rejecting a bid to hear Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal. Maxwell argues she was unjustly prosecuted for her role helping Jeffrey Epstein recruit and groom girls as young as 14. In 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years behind bars for sex trafficking. And joining us now is Eric Fudali, who represents several Epstein accusers. Also with us, former U.S. Attorney and MSNBC legal analyst Barbara McQuade. Eric, first, your reaction to this big development.
Well, it's fantastic news. I mean, this is absolutely the right decision. What Ms. Maxwell's team tried to do is they tried really to turn one of the great travesties of injustice when it comes to child sex trafficking, the non-prosecution agreement by Alex Acosta, to allow Jeffrey Epstein to continue to abuse for another decade. They tried to use that to say, now you also can't prosecute Ms. Maxwell because technically she would have been included as a co-conspirator, and that would apply to the entire United States, even though it very clearly only applied to Florida. So that's what she tried to do. And thankfully, the Supreme Court did not buy it, just like every court did not buy it. It was a real Hail Mary argument. And on behalf of the victims, we're very pleased. I hope this is the last we hear of Ghislaine Maxwell, unless, of course, the news is that she's being transferred back to a more maximum security prison.
Have you heard it all from any of your clients at this point in reaction to this?
Certainly, yeah. They're relieved. Every time they have to hear Ms. Maxwell's name, remember, she was given this platform by the DOJ to just deny and tell her side of the story, which was nonsense. She got to be moved to this minimum security resort. We're really sick of this Ghislaine Maxwell special treatment, really sick of her getting a platform, and really sick of her being in the news. She doesn't deserve to be in the news. She deserves to be behind bars where child sex traffickers belong.
So, Barb, in a statement, here's what Maxwell's attorney says. This fight isn't over. Serious legal and factual issues remain, and we will continue to pursue every avenue available to ensure that justice is done. He doesn't elaborate on what he means by this fight isn't over. What could he mean? Could Maxwell take this challenge further in some way?
Yes, one of the things that a defendant has available to them, even after they have exhausted all of their rights to appeal, is to file a habeas corpus petition alleging that their confinement is in violation of the Constitution in some way. And so if you could say that someone's constitutional rights were deprived at some stage of the case, in this instance, perhaps this argument that we've just been discussing about the plea agreement that Alex Acosta signed. I don't think that there is any merit to any of them based on what we have seen. I agree that this last gasp legal challenge before the Supreme Court was the equivalent of a legal Hail Mary. But nonetheless, there is this, it's a civil process, a habeas process that could seek collateral relief from courts if there is a constitutional violation that occurred in the process of her prosecution.
Eric, are you prepared if Maxwell's team tries to take that approach?
Yeah, I'm prepared. I've been prepared for everything that comes out of this Epstein sort of debacle, you could call it, for the last few decades. There's almost zero chance that habeas corpus would work for Ms. Maxwell. She's going to be behind bars. She's going to be in prison where she belongs.
Unless she gets pardoned.
Unless she gets pardoned. And, I couldn't even think of the words to describe the devastation that would be to victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ms. Maxwell if that was the case. But right now, I think we're all really pleased and hope this is the last we hear of Ms. Maxwell for a good time.
Barb, today is the first day of the new Supreme Court term, and the justices already are looking at a docket stacked with challenges to President Trump's policies and use of executive powers. Which cases are you watching most closely?
Well, I think most closely I will be watching the new emergency petitions that come from this administration. Already the court has taken more than 24 emergency petitions on the so-called shadow docket, and I imagine we'll see even more. But already docketed, I think the cases relating to presidential power are the most important and will have the longest implications in our country. One about President Trump's power to assess tariffs, that will be heard in November, and then also his ability to fire the heads of independent agencies. There's cases involving the FTC, the NLRB, and the Federal Reserve. Congress put checks and balances in there to require staggered terms, longer lengths, bipartisanship, and for-cause provisions. And President Trump has taken the position that as the executive, he has all of the executive power and gets to fire people as he pleases. So I think those are going to be some really monumental cases that come down.
So much for us.
2 weeks after winning a special election decisively in Arizona's 7th congressional district, Democratic Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva still hasn't been sworn into office. House Speaker Mike Johnson's office tells CNN she will be sworn in when the House returns to session. Joining me now is Congresswoman-elect from Arizona, Adelita Grijalva. Thank you so much for being here. Representative, you were elected 2 weeks ago. Why do you think you have not been sworn in by the Republican Speaker of the House yet?
You know, in general, I try not to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, okay, there has to be some plausible explanation. But in my case, this speaker, Speaker Johnson, has sworn in 3 other members of Congress that were elected in a special. And 2 of them were Republican, April 1st, and they were sworn in April 2nd in a pro forma session. And then we have a Representative Walkinshaw, a Democrat, sworn in about 3 weeks ago, elected on a Tuesday, sworn in less than 24 hours later on Wednesday. And there was a pro forma session. I was in DC, and now I hear, well, the next time that Congress is in session, we were scheduled to be in session September 29th, the 30th, those were canceled. And then we were scheduled to be in session on the 7th of October, those were also canceled. And now he has indicated publicly that until the Senate does their, passes something that the House can look at, then we're not coming back. So I don't know, I have any idea when I might get sworn in. And the Speaker's office has not had any direct communication with me.
Let me ask you why you think there are some Democrats saying this has to do with the Epstein files. Are you hearing that? And what's your sense?
I am hearing that. And I am going to be the 218th signer to the discharge petition. So that is the only thing that most people are pointing to. I mean, I am a woman of color, a Chicana from Tucson. None of those factors, I don't think, are reasons why I wouldn't be being sworn in, other than pointing to the Epstein files and the complete lack of transparency from this administration in releasing those files. The other is Speaker Johnson has closed down votes in the recent past to avoid a vote on the Epstein files. So there does seem to be a connection.
You had just mentioned this, but you are the first Latina woman to represent Arizona in Congress, and your grandparents emigrated from Mexico. I want to get your thoughts on what is happening with ICE raids and the Trump administration trying to send in National Guard troops to Portland and Chicago and other cities. The Department of Homeland Security had calling American cities war zones that need saving. How do you see it?
Yeah. So I live here. My district has 3 ports of entry with Mexico, some of the safest communities statistically, nationally. This escalation of violence should scare all of us. Trump is turning our National Guard and ICE against its own people. And when you are declaring war on your own cities, this is where we're going to have some huge conflicts that we've seen play out on video. My colleagues from different parts of the nation are sending in appeals to let's keep the peace. And nobody is asking for this intervention. I believe that this is just Trump stirring up some drama for the midterms.
You talked about the 3 ports of entry with Mexico. In your state, you have seen your undocumented population lowered by as much as half since the height in 2008. Do you support the Trump administration's policy that have lowered the number of undocumented people coming into your state?
No, I do not. I think, we have to have a pathway to legalization. And my tata was a bracero, came over on a guest worker program. Many of the communities here in CD7 are asking for an expedited H-2A visa process in order to be able to.
Let's just call it what it is. Trump wants the Epstein files buried. Every move lately points in that direction. From court delays to congressional stall tactics, it feels like watching someone throw sand into the air so that no one sees what's happening behind the curtain. Pocket sand. And the curtain in this case is Jeffrey Epstein, a name that still makes the political elite flinch. The Supreme Court recently rejected Ghislaine Maxwell's desperate appeal, closing another door on one of the darkest scandals in modern politics. But while that's happening, something far stranger is taking place in Congress. Trump's allies, led by Speaker Mike Johnson, are dragging their feet on swearing in Adelita Grijalva, a newly elected Democrat who just happens to be the final signature required to force the release of the Epstein documents. No coincidence there. Johnson already managed to swear in 3 other members within a day of their elections, 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat. Yet Grijalva's oath has been postponed again and again, under really flimsy excuses about scheduling and all these other nonsense reasons. Now, with the Epstein petition 1 vote away from action, Trump's team has basically gone silent, and the House is suddenly not in session. No one needs to be a conspiracy theorist to recognize what's happening here. They only need to be paying attention. This is all delay tactics. It's a strategy, right? The Epstein files are rumored to contain the names of a lot of powerful people, a lot of powerful businessmen, politicians, maybe even presidents. Trump's circle understands that once those names come out, there's no way to control the narrative anymore. They've already tried to frame everything as old news. Like, oh, why are you still focusing on that old stuff? But the panic behind the scenes tells another story. Meanwhile, Trump is out there creating chaos to try to distract us, threatening to deploy the National Guard to restore order in cities that never ask for help, turning peaceful communities into political props. It's a distraction tactic straight out of his playbook. Shift attention, create noise, and bury the real story. The Epstein files are that real story. What makes this worse is how normalized this obstruction has become. Every time someone asks about transparency, there's another excuse, another procedural wall, another "oh, we'll get to it later." Yet when it's time to push his own agenda, Trump can move mountains overnight. Just like this. So easy. And the question now is not about whether he's even trying to hide something, 'cause he is, obviously. The real question is how far he'll go to keep it hidden. If there were nothing to fear at all, right? Those documents would have been released years ago. So he must be really afraid, and he'll do anything to stop it. But Trump is running out of distractions. The Epstein case continues to build pressure. It's not going away, and the public has been connecting the dots. No number of cancel sessions or manufactured crises or delayed swear-ins can stop the truth from eventually coming out. And when that moment arrives, no spin, no speech, and no stunt will shield him from the fallout.